And it's been a while since I wasn't addicted. We're here in the Pig's Kitchen, Shop Street, Galway, where the young hopeful Dan Ranton has finally produced a new installment of his podcast. That's all we can say at this time. RT News, Galway. This episode of the Pig's Kitchen Podcast is sponsored by the Eglinton Casino in Galway, Ireland's premier card club. If you haven't been there, you should definitely check it out. For all poker players, there's buy-ins for every level. You can look on the website, they'll tell you what day all the tournaments are on, all the different buy-ins. It's a really friendly environment. All the staff will help you out in any way they can, and you're sure to have good crack around there. You'll always have a few beers, and it stays open till all hours of the morning. If you weren't there race week, you should have been. It was fantastic. Can't recommend it enough, and it's right in the heart of Galway city centre, and you're guaranteed to have a good night there. This episode of Pig's Kitchen Podcast is also sponsored by the DC store in Galway. Along my travels, I met a man called John Deely, who is a risk taker, an entrepreneur, and he opened the first DC store outside of the US, and it's actually in Galway. It's a fantastic store down there. A lot of the items, you buy one, you get one free, you get one half price. I can't recommend the store enough, especially if you're a big lanky bastard like me. I always find the clothes really comfortable, and I shop there as much as I can. Especially coming into the winter, he's got really big jackets, and I mean the summer range he had like anything from shorts to like really nice t-shirts. He's got shoes that weigh less than my phone. And he also has talked to me about a project he's doing. He's making a big risk, but he's opening a huge skate park in Ayr Square. I really wish him all the success there. He's just signed planning permission for it. It's going to be coming to Galway next summer, at the earliest, I think. He's going to have a bar, a climbing gym, a restaurant for the kids, a DJ booth, graffiti artists, the opportunities and the opportunities there, and for the development, and it's so great for the community. It's something that's really needed. I wish him all the best with it. So along my travels there last week, I was down in Kerry, and I bumped into Jesse May and Padraig Parkinson for episode 4 of the Pig's Kitchen Podcast. Check it out, guys. Hope you'll enjoy it. Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Pig's Kitchen Podcast.
Episode 4?
Episode 4.
Who was episode 1?
Fintan Gavin.
Jeez, pardon.
Hosting this event.
Well, you didn't want to set too high a bar. I think that's a pretty smart.
I had a few online wizards on in the meantime.
You didn't want to start off too high.
So I'm joined today by two legends, absolute legends, the wise old owls, Jesse May and Padraig Parkinson. How are we getting on, guys?
Getting great. I don't mind being called a wise old owl. The word old...
I've called you a lot worse.
He definitely called me a lot worse. I consider it an honor at this stage.
Are you enjoying the event? What do you think of it all?
This is the best venue in Ireland, in my opinion.
Yeah, and, it's fantastic.
At this stage, I feel like I've been to nearly all the venues in Ireland, including the old Marion Club, which was a nice venue. Except it was four flights up to the tournament in Marion Square. Remember, Park? And every time you wanted to have a cigarette, you had to go down the 4 flights, back up the 4 flights. It was.
I'll go up to the attic and smoke out the window. We didn't tell you about that. We knew you'd probably tell them.
They used to have the buffet in the basement. This is the very first time I was there.
Yeah, that buffet was great. It was the same stuff every night because everybody used to just go to Riley's pub during the break.
Good old roast dinner, was it? Yeah?
Well, they'd have all the dinner and the salads and everything already, and everybody be up in the pub.
They were using the same ham and turkey for 4 years.
Ham and turkey. Come back and eat it at the break then, after the break.
Yeah, the turkey done had been reincarnated.
Because you couldn't drink in the Marion Club, so on the breaks everyone would just go straight to the pub and stay there the whole break and then go back. And you managed to get some beers in there though. managed, because the first time I met you was in the lobby there, and you were holding 3 beers, 3 pints at one time. That was 2000.
Yeah, that was my max at the time. I've worked up.
You worked up to 4 now, yeah.
It was October 2000 when I met Parg, and that was in the Marion Club.
It's a bad day, wasn't it?
So you've really been there through the whole evolution of poker. I mean, you've been there since the start. Like, I mean,
Parg has been there slightly longer than me.
Yeah.
He was probably playing. Well, when would be your first time in Las Vegas? It was in the 90s.
Would it be
90?
when Harrington won?
In 95, yeah.
95, well, then I knew you. That's it. He knows the first year I was in Vegas. I don't.
yeah, but I mean, for
That
me,
tells you quite a lot.
I'm 26, and like it's you're two people I always listen to, and I'd like to get into commentating myself. So that's 20 years ago, 21 years ago, when you first went to Vegas. Like,
And we're getting worse.
look how much has changed since then. It's crazy.
It has. Well, the whole commentary thing was, there wasn't even a word for poker commentary back then. Essentially, when poker commentary started, they were the people who it was you got knocked out of the tournament, so you're going to have to go in the box and punish yourself. That was pretty much
You're in the bin, you're in the sim bin,
I mean, it was
Well,
pretty much,
Jesse and
you're
I
not
said
good
you-
enough to be at the table, so get in there and try and make the other guys
I mean,
look
Jesse
good.
said there wasn't a word for poker commentary, but when Jesse and I started commenting together, there was shit.
Oh, I always found it quite entertaining. Anyway, I mean, these are some of the best commentators I've ever heard, for sure.
Well, we used to have. I mean,
Well, the key to it is we're good friends. I
Yeah.
mean, believe it or not, I mean, you're looking at us, you wouldn't think so.
You need a good buddy, yeah. You need someone. You need to bounce off each other with ideas and things. I suppose.
Well, it's
yeah.
just it's like I always looked at it in the early days of commentary where we weren't actually commentating. We were just sitting there watching it anyway, and it would be the
Yeah.
normal conversation you'd have.
Yeah, it was
I think it
easy
was
for you,
only
yeah.
later on when people started really
Thought
thinking.
we took that a bit further.
It was only later on when you realized that people really wanted to analyze the hands and stuff like that. For me, commentating started like
That was the end of us.
Yeah, it would I remember watching Park. One of the first times I had met him, we were in Amsterdam, and he was deep in the tournament, and I was sitting on the rail. It was me and Scott Gray and Mike Sexton. Mike Sexton's one of the greatest commentators of all time.
He's brilliant,
so
yeah.
being on the rail with him and Scott Gray, we're just sitting there watching Park. That was commentary.
Got a
Well,
wire
this is
tear the whole
Amsterdam.
event.
Absolutely. Scott would go, oh, he's going to pass her. I'm like, no, oh my God, he's not going to pass. He's not. Be like that kind of thing. We'd just be bullshitting.
It's just
about it.
a passion and the desire
Yeah.
to know what was going to happen next, I suppose.
Because you were always on it. In those early days, there were so few tournaments, and every tournament was kind of so big that anytime a guy got deep,
Yeah.
you would just be on the rail the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, these days, okay, you'll go sweat a mate at the final table and stuff
course,
like
yeah.
that.
It's
But
all
not,
internet, yeah.
Right, but it's not the same way when, it was such a big moment. Like, every time a guy got to the final table back then, it might have well been the World Series, and you'd just be locked in, talking hands with them, and, when Scott made the final table, Scott Gray made the final table, and Julian Gardner made the final table, the World Series of Poker, they'd be there talking hands with Parg on the breaks. It'd be really full on,
Back in the good old days.
yeah. Well,
I don't remember much about that final.
I mean, I'm sure you still do that. Like when one of your mates makes a big final, they want to talk.
Yeah,
hands
we're
and that sort of
predominantly
thing.
online, like a lot of us. Like I have a group there that's like 25 of the best poker players in Ireland, pretty much, and here and there. It's something I'm really proud of or whatever. But it's starting to. Everyone's kind of seeing poker, the future of poker, maybe not going so bright. Like so, I'm trying to keep the faith anyway, and I'm trying to play more live events. We've been playing a lot of World Championships. Deep run in the Sunday Million last week, all right.
Did
It was
you?
like 30th or something, but it's hard, man. It's
pretty
getting. Yeah, I lost like 115 big blind flip with like 30 left for ace king. Yeah.
Well, I think poker's changed quite a bit. Poker's kind of changing back a bit in the last few years.
I mean, I was wondering if you saw that because for Parg and me, we saw it go from live to online.
Yeah.
And now, from at least my perspective, it's going back from online to live. I see that as.
I
kind
see
of a
that
good
in the
thing.
last year or two
Yeah.
as well. That's huge. It's massive.
Well,
for
you know,
everything.
poker went from being a game that was played for fun and of course for profit to a game that was played that became a very boring game that guys were playing just like a normal computer game because, I'm probably not supposed to say this, but, online poker is not poker. It's just a load of bollocks,
It's not that you're not supposed to say it. It's that you're not guaranteed to be right. But I mean, that's a whole nother story.
well, for me, I've really neglected the live scene the last couple of years, because I was just kept losing on every trip. It was costing me a lot of money. I'm a turbo specialist. I play a lot of turbos. I'm used to having 15 to 20 tables in front of me all the time.
GPPT.
I know how much
Bit
money I
fast
can
for you.
make, and it's hard to get out of my coop sometimes, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it's just kind of what Padraig is saying. I mean, I think one of the great things about poker is that, in my mind, I mean, the best poker players become all-rounders after a while. Like, it's okay to start as a specialist, but when you really start to get into it, you need to be an all-rounder, because if you can't win in any game that you're supposed to, in any situation, then, like, you're just going to get swallowed up. You know what I mean?
Like, I've never even been to Vegas, for example. Like, it's a bit embarrassing. I've been playing like 7, 8 years. It's time to move up in the world, I think.
It's a bit like, it's an interesting point, actually, because do you remember Dan Harrington was telling us about, his friend Ray Z?
Yeah.
Who was, Ray Z was maybe
the greatest.
He's written a lot of those poker books. He's written the books on the high-low split and all of that. But a very, very smart guy, stayed as close to under the radar as he could, but was a great all-rounder. And Dan Harrington said that, in the old days of the World Series, that this guy used to have, back in Binions, he used to have an incredible edge. Because, they'd be back and they'd just be downstairs in Binions when when they're doing cash games down there. There might only be 10 tables playing there, at 2 o'clock in the morning. Probably no limit hold'em at the time. There'd have been a few limit hold'em games. There'd have been 7 high-low, Omaha high-low, pot limit Omaha, blah, blah, blah. But or whatever else was going on. But Ray Z would come down fresh at 2 o'clock in the morning, and Ray Z would just walk around the poker room. He'd never ask anybody what the game was. He'd just walk around. There weren't that many tables to look at. He'd just look at the table. He'd pick out. I mean, in those days, everybody knew.
It didn't matter what they were playing. You had to find the guy who was stuck, who was buried, and who was the live one. And whatever he was playing,
he'd find the best lineup. And then he'd go up to the floor guy and say, "You put me on the list for that game down there." The guy would say, "The Omaha high-lows and Ray Z," say, "Well, whatever it is."
He could be walking around for ages like that.
Yeah, and Dan Harrington, he was a very good mate with Dan Harrington. And Dan said that this was the ultimate in professionalism, and that in poker, if you're a specialist, you're cutting yourself off from an awful lot of possible profitable avenues, they're basically saying you shouldn't go around and say, well, listen, I'm a PLO player. And you get into a PLO player with a whole bunch of PLO pros, because that's your game. And there's a bunch of guys over in the corner that are drunk playing no limit hold'em. I mean, the very least you should be able to do is play, say, in Ireland, maybe hold'em in Omaha.
Be diverse, I can't even play Omaha.
And also, of course, I mean, with the online, I mean, if there's something, if you're sitting at home and you're checking out something online, and you find something juicy going on, you should be able to get into that as well.
That's it,
You should be able to take the maximum advantage of everything. I mean, it sounds...
Now, it is a double-edged sword.
To me, that sounds very boring, but Dan Harrington told Jesse and I that one day, and Dan is always fucking right.
And among the Irish guys, who would you say was that kind of guy? Was it? I mean, would Donica have been that? Ben Roberts, as far as the Europeans, maybe was a little bit. Who were the real all-rounders, you think? I think among the Europeans.
Just play all the games.
Well, Donica would have. Donica was.
He could play a lot of games.
Donica's the godfather of Irish poker, and a particular hero of mine, because he stood the test of time. But Donica, Donica was green once too, when he went over. You could hear Donica talking about.
Oh, he's got some great stories about playing in the early '80s.
We want stories, guys.
They used to make it 10 for him, Donica thought, what a nice bunch of guys these are. He'd come in and he'd be.
It was the Dunes poker room run by John.
This is the Irish guys come all the way over. Let's play 10. Donica said that was going on for 5 or 6 days. They were always playing 9, and he was the only guy they ever made a 10 for. They said after 5 or 6 days of this, Donica came in, there's 9 guys sitting at the table, and Donica said, "Oh, can I play it?" He goes, "We can play 10, can't we?" "No, we don't do that anymore."
I mean, he was the first European, really, in some ways, to be that kind of guy who they realized wasn't a fish. Like, they had no clue that there could be a European that could play well.
Yeah.
I mean, in the big stakes. I mean, like, in those games,
but Donica would have learned. Donica would have learned, from his dad and his dad's games, how to play dealer's choice and that. So Donica would have been smart enough to figure out that, if the fish wants to play some other game, then maybe you should learn that game as well.
Yeah. It's crazy though. You've really seen, through both of you probably have known nearly every poker player ever, like, you know what I mean? Over the last like 30 years or so. Like,
I mean, I first started going out to
We
poker.
know all the dead guys.
Yeah.
At least they can't contradict us. I was a very good friend of some dead guy. I mean, what's
Did
he
you know
going to
Stu
do?
Ungar, like, yeah?
Padraig, I think, played with him a few times.
Yeah.
I was very friendly with his best friend, who was a guy named Billy the Kid, who was a cheat,
the Kid.
and he was a dealer. He was a great cheat. And I ran it, and he was one of the guys that in the early days they used to put in the games when they needed a cold deck in there, when they needed certain things to happen. And when I first started going out to Vegas when I was 17 and 18,
And 12.
Was it illegal to play then at the time?
well, illegal is a very broad term.
In Las Vegas, anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically back then you had to be 21, but
You got away with it.
it was like in the Stardust when we first started going out there for the summers, we were the mascots of the low stakes poker, and they knew we were 18, and they just loved it. Nobody cared. But like usually, you went to certain places, you just go in without ID, and if it asks you for ID, you just say, well, I don't have it.
I lost my ID there on the plane.
And you just leave and cash in. But this Billy the Kid, he was very friendly. He was one of Stu Ungar's mate from way back, and when I ran into him in the Stardust, they were cheating the high-low game at the Stardust, and he used to tell great stories about Stu Ungar. But you actually played with him.
I played him a few times, but I think Scott Gray would probably play with him a lot more than I did. I mean, I played with Stewie, but I played with Stewie near the end, so it doesn't really count. I played with a shell that was once Stewie.
Yeah.
But
The
I
life
did
was
watch.
sucked out. All right, but that's
But
the
long after the life was sucked out of him, I was hanging around. Like, I never watched poker. I hate it. I mean, I love playing it. I hate watching it.
Hey, watching it.
Yeah,
There's a lot to pick up on,
unless I'm hanging around with Jesse and there's some guy we don't like and we hope he does his bollocks, we're quite happy to hang
I'm
around.
right here, guys.
we like hanging around and watching him buying in again, but apart from that,
You're around for the day now.
but I actually, the year Stewie won his third world championship, I was hanging around there because my friend Mike Sexton was playing at that year. I was hanging around having a crack with Mike, and but I ended up. Mike was at a table in the middle of the room, and Stewie was on the rails.
Stewie loved Mike.
So,
I mean, I don't exactly know why, because Mike, in some ways, Sexton grew up as kind of perceived as a poker nit. I mean, come on, he was a bit of a tighter player, like Stu Ungar was the...
What, you think I'm going to argue?
I was waiting for you to say, hold on a second, Jesse.
You'd be waiting a while.
But like, and Stu was just the wildest, craziest, talented guy in the world.
Yeah,
and they were two
was,
peas in a pod for some reason.
It was maybe the strangest friendship in poker. You got
quite
the
sad,
good old
yeah.
Southern boy, the good old Republican, and Stewie. I mean,
Stu from New York,
Jewish guy from New York.
Yeah.
But I watched Stewie accidentally. I mean, it was absolutely magical. I was hanging around waiting to talk to Mike on the break, and I started watching Stu Ungar playing poker, and him apparently in a very bad way from the coke. And I watched him. I stayed the whole day. I nearly stayed at the table during the dinner break to make sure I didn't lose my spot. He was just absolutely magical. I mean, he was just a green chip magnet. I mean, he was playing a game. This was,
well, it was 97, the year, the
97,
third world
yeah.
champions, 97.
He just had a different mind, I think, didn't he?
But this was, I mean, I was watching a genius playing a game that guys think was invented in 2005. And that all these guys from the internet think they invented that shit. Well, I got bad fucking news for you guys. Stewie Ungar had that off in the 90s. I mean, Stewie was maybe 10, 15 years ahead of his time.
So,
he was playing small ball, totally aggressive. 2-3 bullets, the whole shebang. That guys, some guy had to get a computer to fucking figure out. Stewie figured it out over breakfast one morning, which probably means that he is the greatest poker player that ever lived, because he was, some of these guys today, I mean, they're fantastic poker players, don't get me wrong. They're way better poker players than I'd ever be on my best day. But Stewie did all of that without a computer, without a whole bunch of programs to tell him this and the other, without any of the shit that you get on the internet where you find out all the information about stuff that guys like Stewie had to figure out himself. He didn't have any of those tools. He didn't have any coaching. He didn't have any big, internet discussions and talk shops and
Or
all
even
that
a hood,
other
like
bollocks.
Penny with stats.
He didn't even have a hoodie.
So I had that experience.
But this guy,
yeah.
I watched him. I mean, his body absolutely ravaged from cocaine. His nose.
God, he used to have. I mean, you've probably seen the pictures. He had these. That last year, he had these green little tinted sunglasses.
Yeah.
They couldn't have cost more than 64 cents. I mean, you probably couldn't have seen that. These little Coke bottles.
Less than
sunglasses,
$1, like.
But tinted. Oh, did I have not have a pair? Are you crazy? I had like 3 pairs of them. What do you mean?
But Stewie probably was. I mean, for my money, and I've got huge respect for Ivy. Ivy's the only guy who's ever scared the shit out of me at the poker table.
Yeah.
It shows how dumb I am. Because I should have been scared of a lot more guys than Ivy. But I mean, the only guy I've ever sat down at the table with and said, "Oh fuck." I mean, that's Ivy. But I mean,
Yeah.
I just wait. And I know Mike Sexton has convinced me of this.
Yeah.
That if Stewie had lived and had the incentive, of a 10,000 buy-in tournament every week, or all these high rollers and all of that, Stewie wouldn't have bothered dying. So Stewie
Wouldn't have bothered dying. You don't get to choose these things sometimes.
Well, Stewie did.
Yeah,
Stewie chose it.
But I kind of had that. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I had experience a little bit with Huckseed, who I think is totally underrated as far as how big he was. In '91, he had won in California. He had won something like $10 million playing all the boys in the limit games, the no limit games in California, and they brought him back to Vegas to play with him in Binions. And I used to play in this 10-20 limit hold'em game in Binions in '91. And then right behind me they had the big game, and it was Doyle Brunson sitting around the table, Johnny Chan, Lyle Berman, Bobby Baldwin, and Chip Reese, some French guy, and then Huck Seed.
Pretty
Huck,
sick lineup.
Yeah, and Huck was like, he must have been 22 or something like that. He was quite young, and he used to have, he'd always be wearing run-in shorts and these huge unlaced high-top sneakers, and playing the boys, and it just looked so weird. I didn't really know I didn't even know who Huck Seed was at the time, and
He probably didn't know you were either.
he did not know who I was, and apparently he did not know who all. He might not have known Doyle and Chip and Johnny Chan and Bobby Baldwin quite well enough
he knows
either,
them now.
because apparently now I don't know, but the rumors are that he might have gotten beat out of that $10 million in that game in Binions, but they would all talk to him about him every time he went to the box. No, it was an unlucky room for him in those days, apparently. After he'd won the $10 million in California.
Yeah, well,
That'd probably explain it.
it's like all these players now though are definitely struggling to a certain degree, like because of the way the game's evolved, and everyone knows this. And like even if you're, say you're at the final table of the World Series, like everyone knows your hole cards to break. I don't like.
That's the biggest load of crap I've ever seen.
I don't like
I
these things
totally
at all.
disagree.
I think the November 9 is
disagree?
nonsense.
Well, I just think the game should change. I think this half-hour delay and stuff, I think the game should change. And what the game is from now on, it's called perfect information. And after every hand, everybody just flips their cards over. And you just see what everybody had every hand. The information is out there.
It's a game of incomplete information. That's what it's called.
But then the game becomes levels against levels. It's a change game.
How can the main event be decided by who's got the best corner?
Yeah, but that's ridiculous.
The November 9 is the greatest load of bollocks.
That is,
of all time.
yeah.
And the poker players were sold out.
Right. But that's what I say. If they had no delay, if people just flipped their cards up, then you wouldn't have to have
the whole
the
thing
corner.
was the November 9 was according to it was said, so that was so lads could get sponsorship deals and all of that. Well, I tell you what, they could put the final table of the World Series back by about 3 fucking years, and nobody's going to get any sponsorship out of it because no online sites are spending any money anyway. So there's no benefit whatsoever to the poker players except they got to sit around shitting themselves.
I'm not a fan of November 9.
I mean, if you look at a guy like, from an Irish perspective, we got robbed here because probably a couple of years ago, the guy that was playing the best was Owen O'D.
Yeah.
He was certainly the most focused guy there. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah.
And while all these guys were running around doing interviews for ESPN and all of that, Owen was down in the
for
gym.
sure he was the most
He
prepared
turned up
for that
in 5
fight,
minutes to go. He was the most focused. He was the guy that knew
Without
what was going
question.
on. He came back like 3 months later. This guy, who's a very nice fella, what's his name? Pius Pines or Pius Hines or something.
I know who you're on about.
Some lad.
Pius
Pius
Hines, the German,
yeah. I know
and the fella from Vegas, the guy that
yeah, but these guys came back different players.
It's not fair. They can get coaching in the meantime. You know, like they have all their friends helping you, and they've learned so much about the game. Plus, if you're in the zone,
plus they got 3 months of sleep. Well, I mean, not great sleep, but compared to how most guys are by the end of that World Series being there for months, Hard used to, and Scott, the greatest thing they used to do was they would go out there and they would nearly do nothing for 2 months just to prepare for the main event, because when you got to that 5th or 6th day, I mean, you have no idea.
Fucked, yeah. You can't be on the beer. It doesn't matter what you're doing.
Yeah, and if you played too many tournaments in a run-up, and that's why, like, everybody says, oh, it's a big crapshoot. Why are we having more big names in November 9 at the World Series? The reason is because nearly every big name in poker, they are so spent by the time the main event starts. They got no shot. I mean, they have no shot. And that's why you have no big names.
On the flip side of that, though, when you're really feeling it, and you're in the zone, and you're really enthused, and you're at the table, and you're really feeling it's your moment, and then that you have to come back 3 months later. Like, who's to say what way your mindset is after 3 months? Anything can happen in the meantime.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, okay, everyone has the same advantage to learn more, but if the fish towards the pros, like, I mean, like someone like Phil Hellmuth or someone can just coach this person, I mean, suddenly they're a superstar.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, some guys need coaching less than others.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the guy that entered the tournament needing less coaching should be in exactly the same position when they get to the final table. He shouldn't have had some guy, I mean, who, the best of luck to him, has fluked his way through the whole thing. You know, a guy that's pretty average, or probably in a lot of cases sub-average players, because that's what's happening these days. I mean, you're getting the odd.
I'm just laughing because you mentioned Phil Hellmuth. I mean, if there is anything that could be possibly worse than having Phil Hellmuth coach, I mean, his record, Phil Hellmuth's record in coaching November Niners is akin to him just putting a gun to people's heads.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
exactly.
just lay him out on the table. I mean, he convinced Jeff Shulman in 3 months. Jeff Shulman, who was a very, very good poker player,
How did the guy feel about it?
From being into being a basket case.
I had 1% of him.
In 3 months, he convinced Jeff.
What made it turn him into an
He
idiot?
convinced Jeff Shulman that for some reason, at the final table of the World Series, the only thing was 5x or more opens.
Yeah.
And that was what he convinced Jeff Shulman.
I mean,
this is right. And the reason that Phil wanted to do it was because he wanted people to say, that's a Phil Hellmuth. He wanted something
And
weird.
if you're listening,
people would
Phil,
say,
we know.
That's a Hellmuth signature move. All right, Jeff Shulman came in there. I mean, the guy is a great poker player. Went in there and decided, I'm not going to open a pot unless it's 5 or 6
Helmut might as well have been. Helmut might as well have been giving parachute lessons to kamikaze.
It was the worst, and everybody he's.
He made a
coaching,
complete idiot.
I mean,
out
like,
of
I'm
Jeff.
not. I don't want to. You know, Phil's a great poker player, great record and all, but as a coach, oh my God! I mean, you do not want this
people
man.
are paying
You do
us
not
so
want
much
this
money.
man inside your head.
But all Helmut wanted to do was that Jeff would play an unorthodox
And then
game,
people say
and
it's, of course, that's a signature
I was
move.
I was in the bar watching that with Doyle and Daniel Negriano and Mike. What do you call the head case?
I can tell you exactly.
Mike Lang.
Yeah.
And Scove. And we're in the bar, the 5 of us, watching this, and the next thing is Jeff Shulman is going 4.5x or something like that. And I was saying to Daniel, I said, what the fuck is going on here? I thought, well, maybe I better ask Doyle. I mean, he might. So I was going to ask Mike Lang, and I forget about it.
Yeah, but where do you see these like the future of poker going? I mean, like
This is the future of poker right here.
Oh yeah.
Downstairs.
This is
downstairs. Yeah,
downstairs.
guys, I wish
That
you
is
could
the
be here
future
to
of
see how
poker, I
beautiful it
promise
is.
you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the future of Irish poker.
This
I mean,
venue is huge.
You're at the most historic event that's happened in Irish poker since Terry Rogers brought Doyle and Stewie and the boys over to Killiney Castle in 1982.
Yeah.
It's now gone the whole circle. I mean,
It's brilliant to see, isn't it? Like,
in
it's
Ireland,
fantastic.
we've had the culture of the superstar for way too long.
Yeah.
And that, Irish poker's been all about, I mean, some very nice guys, some very, very good poker players, but they've got all the attention and all the focus. And 95% of Irish players, I mean, who are the backbone of the game, and most of whom love the game a lot more than the superstars do, have been kept in the back seat. And it's been all about the stars. Well, bollocks to that.
You're right.
We've turned that upside down here.
Yeah.
This tournament you're seeing down here, this is the People's Championship.
I mean, you just mentioned yourself.
And this is official recognition from Dusk Till Dawn and Party Poker.
And Fintan Gavin has done a fantastic job.
Fintan Gavin did fuck all. I didn't. Fintan Gavin my bollocks. What did he tell you?
They're out him now. Like.
No, Fintan has done a fantastic job, and I was delighted to be Fintan's partner in doing the whole thing.
That's great.
Because Fitton did a fantastic job. Sorry, Fitton.
It's fantastic to see, like, to be honest.
But this is a whole new. It's like almost a people's movement here.
Yeah.
In that.
Something had to be done.
This all started. I mean, the guy that didn't get any credit for all of this is a guy called Scally.
Yeah.
And also a World Series final table called John Calmar. This whole thing came out of a conversation that happened at the bar at the Irish Open well over 2 years ago. In that Scally, who worked for Dust Till Dawn, had heard that Paddy Powers were pulling out of the Irish Open in particular and poker in general. And Scally had been talking to Rob Young, and they were trying to buy the Irish Open. So they stuck me into going into Paddy Powers to try and buy the Irish Open with Dust Till Dawn, and I got laughed out of the place. I mean, they didn't want to do that, and I can see why. I mean, like Paddy Powers wanted to get rid of the Irish Open.
Very prestigious event, you know.
Yeah.
Well, they wanted to get rid of the Irish Open, but they didn't want to get rid of it to an outfit like Dust Till Dawn, who'd be backed by Party Poker and would make the thing a lot bigger than it was. Now, Paul and JP have done a fantastic job at the Irish Open, but their hands are tied in what they can do with sponsorship-wise and all of that because of an agreement that they have with Paddy Powers. I don't know the terms of it, and I don't want to know, but anyway, Dust Till Dawn and Party Poker were not allowed to buy the Irish Open. So the conversation then went on from there as to well, if they can't buy the Irish Open, what are they going to do? So I ended up talking to Scally and Rob Young, who's the head guy in DTD, and this conversation went on for the best part of 12 months. And I managed to convince the guys that there was a market out there in Ireland who felt almost disenfranchised. That
the guys in the pubs, and
the guys in the pubs and the clubs down the country who felt that big time poker was nothing to do with them, that the Irish Open, the EPT, that was all for the Dublin guys and all them big shots, and that there was poker
guys like you, Dan.
that there was two different levels.
Among the 30s,
there was two different levels in Irish poker. That there was the important guys, and then the 95% of guys who were the heart and soul of Irish poker. I tell you, if I get stuck on a slow boat to China, I want to be there with a pub poker player, not some guy who's won 3 EPTs.
I want to be where with Henry from the north.
It's very refreshing to be at a tournament that's not run by Poker Stars. Yeah. It's a different angle. I mean, you've got Mad Marty downstairs doing all his tricks and entertaining people. You've got I don't know how many bars.
You can't have everything. I mean,
no, but you've got all the bars. How many bars are here? Like there's such a wide variety of food. I mean, everyone's been treated so nicely. There's a different kind of camaraderie, I think.
Well, this place
people aren't hiding, and you know,
it's a good break for you then as well, right? Do you think it was good value down here as well for yourself?
Well, I'm going to have to. I qualified for the 115. I have like 60 big blinds. It started at 1, so running late here.
Oh, geez. But it's been wait another 20 minutes and you'll have 30, and then you'll be really comfortable.
It's been fantastic being piggy in the middle here. Yeah, well, other than I've really neglected live over the last year or two. I live really close to the Eglinton, so I'll just give a big pig shout out to the Eglinton, because if I was to play live or the cash games or race week, I go straight over to the Eglinton, because Eglinton is fantastic. So I'm like literally a stone's throw away from there.
You're talking to me and Jesse. We're two of the biggest fans of the Eglinton in the world.
It's class, yeah. So after I finish online, my day, say for the last 2 weeks for the World Championships, I've been getting up before start at 5. I've been playing till 2, 3, 4 a.m. I'm bollocks. I go to bed. I can't sleep till nearly 8. I'm waking up before, and I'm doing the same thing again on repeat. I was doing that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then I need a break. So this was a really good chance. I made it through with a really good stack, and I said, no, I'm going to come down here and play.
And if you keep talking here, you're not going to have any stack.
Oh, that's a great story. Yeah.
So thanks very much for joining us, lads. It was great to hear your stories, and two absolute legends of the game. It's great to have you here.
Cheers. Good luck today, man.
Thanks, guys. I have a special treat here for you today, guys. Mad Marty's going to tell you some serious gambling stories.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please, for what I feel is the most important part of the evening. As you well know, I tell stories, but this is the greatest gambling story ever told in the history of mankind. This year, I had the pleasure of winning a seat for the World Series of Poker. And a guy at my table, an American guy, he said to me, Marty, because that's my name, he said, pound for pound in your pocket, what is the biggest bet you've ever had? And if somebody asks you this question, you have to think about it. You know, you don't just say it was this bet or it was that bet. And I cast my mind back to 1982, and I worked at the Connaught Hotel in Wolverhampton, the most prestigious hotel in the whole of Wolverhampton. And I worked for a man called Lord Harmer Nichols, and he was the MP for European travel. And I was a night porter. And the day I became 25, Lord Harmer Nichols said to me, Martin, you are going to become my personal chauffeur. Wait there. So at the age of 25, I now become Lord Harmer Nichols' personal chauffeur. I had no leather gloves, so these plastic ones I'll have to do. And I used to drive him to the railway station in Wolverhampton on a Monday and pick him up on a Friday, and then I'd fill the car up with petrol, take it down and get it cleaned and valeted, and I was the king of all creation driving around Wolverhampton in this Cornish Rolls Royce. And then one day in September, a man whose name I will never ever forget, Peter Stanley Townsend Whitehead, MBE. He was the cleverest man that had ever walked the floorboards of Great Britain, and he was a college lecturer at Wolverhampton University. And they gave him the job of going around all the universities in Great Britain, giving lectures, intelligent lectures. And he said he needed a chauffeur and he needed a Rolls Royce. And Lord Harmer Nichols had got a chauffeur, obviously me, and he'd got a Rolls Royce. So I went round the country to different universities, Leicester University, Bournemouth University, Manchester University, Liverpool University, Edinburgh University, driving the cleverest man that had ever walked the floorboards of Great Britain, Peter Stanley Townsend Whitehead MBE. And all he did was lectures at the college. Anyway, the one day I was that sick of it. I used to get £20 a day, and he used to get £500 a day. And I said to him the one day, I can do that lecture better than you can. I've heard it word for word every day of my flipping last 6 months. I bet you my £20 wages for today against your £500, I can do that lecture. And we were going to Leeds University. And he was a gambling man, and he said, okay, you're on. £500 of his went in the dash, £20 of mine went in the dash. And I said, you are now the chauffeur for today. Finton, this is where I need you, right? Yes. You are now the chauffeur for today. Could you please stand up, Finton, right? And I will be Peter Stanley Townsend Whitehead MBE, the cleverest man that ever walked the floorboards of Great Britain. So I had this £500 to £20 bet with Peter Stanley Townsend Whitehead MBE. Just for the camera, Finton is Peter Stanley Townsend Whitehead MBE, but we've swapped roles for the day. So we get to Leeds University. We get to Leeds University, and the situation is I have to go on the stage, and I have to stand on the stage and give it everything I've got. I get on that stage at Leeds University. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Leeds University here in the heart of Yorkshire. My name is Peter Stanley Townsend Whitehead MBE, and my chauffeur sat at the back of the room, who was really Peter Stanley Townsend Whitehead MBE. And I did the lecture better than he did. And the applause went up. 1,300 people stood up and applauded. But there was a twist, there was a turn. It never ever runs smooth, and something was about to happen where I had an opportunity of losing this money. The bursar come running in. He said, hold it there. We have 10 minutes on the clock. What about if we do question and answer time? Oh God, I was stumped. I had no idea I was going to do question and answer time. So I said, yeah, we'll do question and answer time. A man on the front row stood up. He had a pair of glasses up here, a pair of glasses here, and a pair of glasses on a piece of string. And he had books under both arms. And he stood up and he said to me, what would happen if a dinosaur died 5 million years ago and he got buried under 100 foot of soil and 100 foot of gravel and 100 foot of soil again and then 100 foot of gravel and then another 100 foot of soil, and he'd been there for 5 million years, and they drilled through the ground for oil, and after 5 million years when they drilled through the ground they drilled through the dinosaur's bone. What would be the density of the dinosaur's bones after 5 million years? Wow, this stumped me. I was absolutely done. There was £520 in the dash. Now Peter Stanley Townsend Whitehead, the cleverest man that's ever walked the floorboards of Great Britain, is going to beat me. And I looked at this guy with the books under his arms, and I said to him, that is the easiest question anybody has asked me since I've been doing these lectures around the universities. In fact, it's that easy, I'm going to ask my chauffeur to answer it for me.
Fantastic. Hope you enjoyed that one, fellers. That was only one of Mad Marty's stories. He's got many. You should really make an effort to go see him sometime. He's quite the character. He'll always have you laughing. And that's going to do it for episode 4 of the Pigs Kitchen Podcast. Join me next time where I hope to catch up with Big Papa, aka Paul Carr, about his weight loss bet, and maybe get in touch with an online wizard for a rundown of the World Championships. Pig out.